We'll start a little bit back to the very bottom of the previous page, on page Lamed Ches. We went into this just to get into the next point, but we didn't have time to really elaborate on it. Okay, in the very bottom of Lamed Ches, he just finished saying that the etzem ha-sechel is not mugbal, does not have really boundaries and parameters upon which it is based. It has an essential truth of its own. And this surfaces, this is what's brought out by the Tamar HaMachkem Esrabe, by the from Oyer Choizer, as we discussed. And he says towards the end of that discussion that even though we just finished saying that even in Koyach HaMaskil, even that there is also a Hagbola, the Hagbola is only in the sechel, not in the essential element. And now that we're going to go into the next stage of that, and we will try to focus in what are these two inyonim. Okay, at the very bottom of the Matesuk, May bechol dvar sechel. As in fact, this is also true bechol dvar sechel, in any sechel element, aspect. Harei, so there, oim kiyu pnimiyus, its depth and its pnimiyus, meaning its essential, the truth of its own truth, upnimiyus, not as it's understood on a functional level, but the pnimiyus, its own essential reality. Einei mugbal kolkach, is not that much bounded and limited. Again, we will try to kind of open up these nuances. Kol kach, it's not mugbal kol kach. It has an essential hagbola, but not kol kach. What's meant kol kach? The chitzonius has sechel, where the chitzonius of the sechel, we're over here. The chitzonius of the sechel hamlu b'shbil lavushe hasogo, that is dressed, meaning it is contained in the garments of hasoga. Garments of hasoga mean the means by which you understand the sechel, which is not the essential sechel. These are the means by which you grasp it. Hasoga means to grasp. Harehu mugbo mamash, that is truly mugbal, truly bounded and truly limited. B'tzior, in the formulation of levushe hasog, of the garments of hasog, of the garments by which you grasp. Avol oimeg haseichel pnimiyusay, but the depth of the seichel and the pnimiyusay and its own presence, eine mugbal kolkach, is not mugbal that much. All right, let us see if we can identify this levushe hasoga and oimeg haseichel pnimiyusay, and understand, and then understand the real inyan of seichel. For us, this is especially challenging because the seichel that we are used to being exposed to, the whole seichel chitzoni, is effectively levushe hasog. There is no oimek and pnimis haseichel. It's effectively, it's just levushe hasog. And as a result, the oimek pnimis is totally absent. Let's understand it and try to understand it on a very simple and tangible level. As we discussed many times, a table, for example, and I'm going to a table because a table, as we will see, although it is entirely a physical presence that you would think is of no significance, it has profound significance, and it is representative of the depth of a human being. The spirit behind the table is a deep human spirit. And this human spirit is representative of the Ayin that we learned, that the human being actually is a godly spirit. And it goes to the greatest depth of truth. Let us start from the Chichenis. A table is a board. And the board is useful. It has the whole invention of the board, as we would see from Levushe HaSoga, and as it is seen from Chichenis, is just a circumstantial invention. I had this cup in my hand, and I needed my hand to tie my shoe. So I found a place to put it down. Boom. And as a result of that, I came up with the idea, hey, that's a pretty good idea. I can make a board in front of me and put things down whenever I need to put them down. This is the sechel b'levushe hasok. In other words, what is it about? It has this serviceability, it has this function. There's an interesting thing which I observed, that children grow up. You observe a little child. This little child had something in her hand, and then she needed to go and bring something else here. And as she's determining how she should do that, I observed this happening. She decided she's going to put this down first, go and fetch the other things, and bring it here. Before, not even going there with the thing and then dropping it and just contemplating back and forth. Now, this whole contemplation, that you actually can have something in your hand and put it down before you are forced to put it down, because you don't have the other thing, you first have to go fetch it. This is a human sechel. This is human sechel. Where is this sechel contained? How is it? What is the human element in this? The human element in this is the following. I have a conflict because I have this thing and I have to bring this thing. There are two ways to resolve a conflict. One is that they should conflict, and the other way is resolve a conflict. On what basis are you going to resolve a conflict? Both of these things, even though they're conflicting, they both have a right, a place to be. There is a broader reality in which I'm functioning than my two hands. This broader reality, please understand, this is not on a functional, this is an intellectual perception. This is not a reality that is limited on available space. If it's not available, I'll broaden out and I'll, what's the expression they found is thinking out of the box. A whole big invention, a whole big discovery, thinking out of the box. Wow. Because normally they perceive the person to think within the box. All his thinking should be reactive. We discovered, hey, a person is able to think out of the box. How is he able to think out of the box? Because his nefesh is not a box. His nefesh is not reactive. He really perceives. Here is the point which we have to. In his nefesh, he really perceives that there is a reality that allows him to be in this big world before he even attempts to use it. It is God who put him here, who gave him his function and his right to be. And therefore, he thinks out of the box. The table is a representation of that. Yes, I am limited myself, but no. The entire environment in which I am is something which is given to me to accommodate my human needs, my human functions. And then I want to go a step further. Okay, the table, this is a board. Now, the board itself, again, there is the Levushe HaSoga says, this board, how come this board has legs to stand on? The answer is that since I have started using the board, that's thinking in the box. I started using the box and the board, and I see the board doesn't stand, and therefore I cannot really use it. I have to hold up the board somehow. So I figured out I'll put the board on stilts. It is, I just don't want to jump, I want to point out, it is a human perception that no, these legs that are holding up the board are not secondary. This is part of the reality. This is the way it should be. In other words, even though this table is just to service a certain function, it is not just functional. There is a reality to it. It can stand on its own legs and wait for me to use it. It doesn't become a table when I use it. It stands and wait for me to use it. This is already a broader out-of-the-box thinking. It's not only that I have functionally the space for to use it, but actually it is there waiting for me to use it. There's a reality to this functional service itself. This thought of this reality, this is rooted in the reality of the nefesh itself. Because the human being recognizes, it's carved in the reality of the nefesh. He is not here precarious, he is not here a visitor, he belongs here. He has a godly right to be here. And he perceives everything in the world also having a godly presence. A godly presence means that it has to be able to stand on its own. Much to speak about it, but I'm going to have to limit it. Just 1 second. Okay.
What's that stand on its own, please?
You're not getting it?
This last thing you said, in other words, I thought that it stands on its own because of the reality of human being. In other words, it's here to serve the human being, and you just said that everything has its own godly reality. It seemed to mean that, how do you correlate
it? It is the human being who reveals that godly reality. It doesn't have a godly reality on its own if not for the human being. The human being was brought into the world to reveal the God reality in the world. And it has that reality only when the human being is around. But this is the point, that the human reality is so real that it extends even to the objects that he uses. This is what we say all the time. A home, the Gemara says, Odom she'le bayis einay Odom. Odom she'le bayis einay Odom knows the translation of this, right? And a human being who doesn't have a home, bayis is not a human being. How can you say that? A home has a certain functionality. So I sleep in a hotel. No, that's not what a human being is. A home is not for sleeping. A home is that which gives a person a place, a founded a place in the world. And that's what a human being is. And the same thing goes about the table, which is something which a human being uses. It has to be real. So now, when you're going to describe what is a table, you're going to be describing it functionally. This is called levushe hasoga. You're not going to say, a table, oh, this is part of the human reality.
What happened there? The lower level is levushe hasoga, where you describe functionality.
Yeah, that's what levushe hasoga. Like we pointed out many times. You have a table. The table is essentially the top of the board. If you want to pick up the table, how do you pick it up? You can't pick it up from what the table is from the top of the board. You have to go outside of it. You go to its boundaries, to its limits, and that's how you pick it up. How do you describe a table? You can't describe a table. It's a board that allows you to put things. It's a board that has a certain design, a certain size. And the way you approach it is because it has these limits. Like we say, I'm jumping a little, but it's in the same vein, if you understand this. A home is a human dwelling. A human dwelling means that it lends itself to the human being to perceive it as his dwelling. It's not just a place to put things and to have a place to sit or to sleep. It has a human quality to it. And therefore, if you give a human being, he says, your private personal dwelling is the Empire State Building. You can't relate to it. It's not a home. It's no different than being in the Grand Central Station.
So even though this levushe hasoga lacks pnimius and omek depth, yet it's very...
Levushe hasoga is the sechel of that reality. This is what's called the sechel. What's the point of a table? It has a usage. But this is not the depth and pnimius of it. The levushe hasoga bring out its sechel element.
Which here means sort of its functionality.
Functionality. Sechel can relate to functionality. But the pnimius and oimek of that is way beyond it. And the Rebbe said,
by etzema sechel, that's where.
That's what it was, pnimius and oimek. That in truth, every sechel is something which draws from the nefesh. The nefesh is a godly truth. Therefore, every sechel has an element of that, b'pnimius and oimek. Even though we are perceiving it on the sechel level, even to the extent that you can lose sense of what its oimek and pnimius is. And once you lose sense, God forbid, on that level, this is just the beginning. And it leads you further and further and further until you say, there is no such thing as a human being. This is altogether a developed a monkey. No such thing as a living entity altogether. It's all some kind of reaction of electronic pulses. Because after all, the hand does not grab the cup on its own. There's a pulse that told the hand to move it, to pick it up. Therefore, if we really understood the human being, we'd say there is no human being. If we really understood, which means if you put in all, you say that the whole thing is bilevushe hasog, and we are saying that's a lie. There is an oimek, even that which comes in Levushe HaSoga, there is an oimek and pnimis to it that is not Levushe HaSoga. And this is why when a person sees a table standing on four legs, standing on its own, he relates to it perfectly. Well, this is the way a table should be. Not, oh wow, I can think out of the box. This is what it should be. It reflects the human thinking process. Okay, this is it for that.
For now. So the kol kach means there is a pnimius.
There is a Hagbola, because there is a functionality to it. But the functionality itself has a pnimius. Was meant kolka. And for us, it's extremely revealing that in the Beis Hamikdash there was a table, and the table had four legs, and it had a little crown, and it had a gedamfa, and it had a little boundary, a little protrusion from the side, that things wouldn't slide off the table. Like Rashi says, all right. Sorry. All right, so now we are 3 lines from the top and Lamed Tes. That oimeg ha-sechel v'pnimiyusoi einoi mugbal kol kach. It's not mugbal that much, which means, yes, we can express it, but you can't really have a grasp, because it is a nefesh element. And it's not limited that much, but totally, I would say it is not totally comprehensible.
So that's saying the oimek is not mugbo kokach. I thought what we just said is that the sechel itself is not
the oimek ha-sechel. Oimek ha-sechel. Pnimius is not mugbo kokach.
Right, I thought the shot was that the kokach is that it has an oimek of pnimius, and that's what's not mugbo. But the levushei hasaga is mugbo.
The levushei hasaga is mugbo, but the oimek of pnimius ha-sechel is not mugbo kokach.
Okay, but the kokach is implying that it is mugbal a little bit.
Yeah, the oimek is mugbal a little bit because, after all, what is this? What is the oimek? The oimek is that which explains the functionality. That's what it's called kach. But it's not mugbal kokach because there is a reality to it. A person can live without a table. But when there is a table, it is a reflective of the human being. Bezehu, I'm sorry, and bezehu, and that is the part. Sheba b'vchinas hafshoto milevushei hasaga. This is the part that comes, which means how do you really relate to it and sense that oimek pnimius ha-sechel when it comes b'vchinas hafshoto milevushei hasaga. You are removing the levush, the garment of hasaga. You're not insisting I should be able to grasp what is this. I can sense it, sense the truth of it. Which is not nitwas, it cannot be grasped in its limits, because it is not totally limited. There is an essential truth about it. It's not based on Hagbola, it's based on something which is beyond Hagbola, which is the truth of Nefesh. And that is mipnei shemeir bahem ha'oir v'hagilu yoiser. It is because in that depth of sechel, Meir shines. Oir v'hagilu yoiser. What is this referred to? The oir and the gilui at the greater clarity. What is the oir and gilui? As we say all the time, sechel is a gilui hanemesh. Sechel, even though it seems to be serving my body, my hand, and I can conveniently act, no. Sechel is a nefesh element. It is the nefesh ha'odam that feels comfortable, the fact that there is a table, not the hand. Ultimately, this is the sensing of as I said, what is human life? What is the essential intellect, the human intellect? In the chitzonius haseichel, in the chitzonius there is also oir hanefesh. But not so much, because that oir hanefesh is almost totally grasped and defined in levushei hasaga. Oh, you have that because it's convenient. That's the only way to do it. The sichli element, the sechel, the nefesh element, can be completely concealed within the levushei hasaga. But in the oimek pnimis of the sechel, there the oil and gilui is more revealed. There you sense this is a nefesh element. This is purely a living human being. And this is what it depends on. V'lochein, and therefore, It is impossible to bring this depth of the sechel into hashpo. It cannot be represented. It cannot be influenced. B'hasoga mamash. In true hasoga, you can't. Why can't you explain it to me so I can? You understand it, so why can't I understand it? You can understand it if you want to bring your human quality to it. Without that, there's no way. It's impossible to render it in hashpo v'hasoga. Mipnei, because she'eino nitwas behagbola kol kach. Excuse me, because this is really, it does not fit into Hagbola, into a definitive limit. And this is why you cannot render it into Hagbushi Hasod. That is it for this morning. Saselam. Okay, so we'll meet in Mitzvah tonight again. Today is Thursday. Right? 6, 7, 9 class.
8:30.
8:30 Mitzvah. Have a good day.